we need all nurses, therapists, doctors to understand this and to have it in their toolkit so that when you go talk to them and they say, hey, you seem like you got too much red mind and you're burning out, why don't you try the hot tub, the pool, a long bath, swimming laps?
A marine biologist, a creator, a water lover, which we're going to clearly talk about today, a dad, author of Blue Mind. By the way, I love this one. Coined Keeper of the Sea by GQ magazine. That's pretty badass. And today I'm joined by my friend, Dr. Wallace, J Nichols. I mean, I call you Jay, although
Yes.
I got to ask, like, someone along the way has been like, "Oh, the other Dr. J." Do you get that all the time?
Oh yeah. Dr. J is sort of a nickname, and some people don't. The younger folks may not remember the reference exactly, but definitely one of my childhood heroes, along with Jacques Cousteau and of course Evel Knievel. So that just sort of dates me right there. Those three dudes. But yeah, Dr. J. You can call me Dr. J, or you can just call me Jay.
I mean, I want to make sure the audience knows you're a doctor, but to me, you're Jay. You're Jay,
yeah. Right.
So, like, I would love to talk about you, and then I want to talk about water, and then I want to talk about you and water, and we can do rapid fire on this if you want, but, like, let's go with you first. So now I'm curious when you said Dr. J, a.k.a. anyone born in like 2000, this is a basketball player for the Sixers, Julius Erving. So are you from Philly? Where were you born?
I was actually born in New York City, born in Manhattan, grew up in New Jersey. So not far from Philly, really. And so we had the Knicks, the Nets, Sixers, Celtics, that was all that little pocket in there, rivalries. And so, yeah, Jersey guy, I guess you could say, and then net movement west over time. Yeah.
Well, about when?
Moved to Chicago in high school, and then kind of bounced around. I guess I would call myself a native North American, or just a North American. I've lived in Mexico. I've lived in San Juan Islands in Washington State. I've lived in Arizona. Lived in North Carolina. I've lived in New York. Massachusetts, Illinois, Indiana. Got a mom in Montana, another mom in Arizona. So I'm a North American. Can't really pin it down.
And then how did water show up in your life?
Well, I would go way back. So I was adopted, and I was a certified introvert. I can recognize that now. We were just called shy back then. And I stuttered. And so my favorite place to be was underwater, because nobody ever asks you questions. Nobody ever asks you to speak underwater. It's just a nice, quiet place. The distractions go away.
We should have done this underwater. That would have been amazing. It would have been the most boring podcast of all time.
Or at least in a hot tub, bro. So, so I knew that as a kid. I knew I was happier in the water, near the water. That kind of led me towards marine biology as a career. And I didn't recognize at the time that I was basically giving myself blue mind therapy to deal with the anxieties of the world, of the distractions, to deal with my own speech impediment. And if you've been around somebody who stutters or stammers, it's really hard to listen to. So when you speak that way, it throws you off, but it throws the listener off, and you can tell. And then it throws that, seeing them get thrown off throws you off more. And it's this terrible little negative feedback loop that occurs. And so underwater, I gotta just get away from it. And that sort of precipitated my career with the ocean and an interest in water. And then ultimately, they all kind of came around again. I thought, like, what is that? What is it that water does for us? Not just if you're an introvert, but if you're if you have any level of anxiety or stress or distraction or need a boost in creativity or courage, water can help you with those things. And got curious, more and more curious about that. Thought there must be a good book about it. Went looking for that book so I could read it and apply it to my work for the ocean, and found that it hadn't been written yet.
This was when? Like, when do you think this all?
Early, 2005, 6, 7, 8. I wrote a proposal in 2009 to actually do this project after I failed at giving it away. A guy named Dr. Oliver Sacks, really brilliant, late great neurologist, brilliant writer, water lover, music lover, scientist, pitched it to him because I wanted him to write it so I could read it. And I offered my help. I offered to help him. And he said, "It's a fine idea. You do it." And I took that very seriously. In 5 years, handed him. So that was 2009. 5 years later, 2014, handed him a signed hardcover copy of my book. And as you know, that writing process doesn't all, there was research, there were interviews. It took all 5 years to pull it all together.
I mean, the metaphor is when you're writing, you are underwater, like you are by yourself, and it isn't as calming as water, right? But it is a process and a journey. And, I'm smiling on this side as you talk about like the calming effects of water, and I want to get into it. I just wish there was a need for this book right now because, everybody's just fine and no one has anxiety and there's nothing stressful about, as you said, being a native North American right now. Everything's fine. What a waste of time, Jay.
Yeah. Yeah. And even when the book came out in 2014, the American Psychological Association was saying we were in peak anxiety, peak red mind, as I refer to it. All kinds of things. Their Stress in America report that comes out every year was saying anxiety is at an all-time high. And that was 2014, like the good old days, right? And fast forward, we have crazy elections. We have economic ups and downs, a pandemic. And now whatever this is that we're in right now, and people are just straight up burnt out. Our first responders, our frontline health workers, our teachers, and then basically everybody else. And so we do need a better toolkit for managing our emotional well-being. And I think water is one part of your toolkit for sure. Should be. Yeah.
So take me back to hello, brilliant person that I'm working with. Here's an idea that you should write. Here's why. What was his name again?
Oliver Sacks. Okay. Dr. Oliver Sacks.
So yeah. Dr. Sacks, and you're like, hey, this is real. And you had obviously danced a little bit with, surface level research, maybe deeper. Try to make a water pun there a little bit. But so talk me through why you landed on water. Like, how did that, did you just always find this visceral sort of connection? Or as you were doing your research, and you're a doctor, did you just keep stumbling into, because there wasn't literature on there. Is this,
right?
How did it come about?
Very, very little clinical research that you would say was right on the nose. That was exactly what you would want to have been studied. There was a lot of dot connecting. So I pitched the idea to Dr. Sacks, and he said, "You do it." And it felt, it was one of those very clear moments that felt like a command, not a suggestion. And then immediately following that's oh shit, like this is going to take a while. Like I think I'm going to have to do this, and I can't explain exactly why, but it needs to happen. And I don't know how exactly it's going to happen. So this is going to take a while. So there's that moment. And so then you figure it out. And part of figuring it out was, connecting the dots and saying, okay, are there analogous kinds of research on human behavior, such as how it feels or how music influences us? And the answer was yes. How about other elements of nature or art or beauty? And the answer was yes. Is there research on the anxious brain? And the answer was yes. What happens to a very stressed out brain? Do we know? Well, yes. So you start connecting the dots, even though the research that you want was like not yet being done. You start connecting these dots and weaving together this story in order to say confidently, I think water plays a special role in the emotional well-being of humanity. So it was a lot of reaching into different realms of research, but also the anecdotes. So everywhere I went, I heard from entrepreneurs and creative people, athletes, that they used water to do their thing better. Einstein loved to sail, said he got his best ideas while sailing. Steph Curry floats in salt water to calm his mind. Klay Thompson, another warrior, jumps in the Pacific Ocean as often as possible, especially after a bad game. Beyonce, Pharrell Williams, just go down the list of all these people who have said in interviews, in print, water is my secret ingredient. And so pull those people in. Throughout literature, you've got references from page 1 of Moby Dick to the poetry of Pablo Neruda, Mary Oliver, Shawshank Redemption, a great movie. The last scene, Morgan Freeman, the last line of this epic movie, Morgan Freeman's walking on the beach and he said, I hope the Pacific is as blue as it's been in my dreams. And these are dreams that occurred while he was incarcerated and dreaming of the ocean. And there he is, a free man, Morgan Freeman, playing the character Red in Shawshank Redemption, one of the best blue mind scenes of all movies. So pulling these different threads and connecting the dots, telling the story that is not a new story at all.
Yeah, I mean, I love that too. Like you said in like the Red example, that's how the movie ends.
Exactly.
Right? But like all of our movies started page 1, we're in a womb, right? Like page 1, we're in water, and then chaos happens for however long we're here, right?
You come into the air land world, and it's like bright lights, game on,
right?
And you're always just trying to get right back into that water in some way, or other.
I mean, second best movie of all time. Look Who's Talking, right? I mean, right after Shawshank, in that great scene.
I was gonna say that second best movie of all time. Yeah,
that's in the literature, right? That was in the study. So, like, Blue Mind as a concept, is that something as you're going through and you're like, oh, this is coinable, and you go, what a surprise. The storytelling branding guy in me is like, was that yours? Did you come up with Blue Mind? Is that like, talk me through? And even when you presented it to Dr. Sachs, did you have Blue Mind yet as an idea, or did you have like, there's something happening with water and people and we haven't put it together yet?
I think it was definitely the phrase, the two words Blue Mind together hadn't come together, but there were some words surrounding it. Obviously, blue represents, it isn't the color of all water, but it represents, blue or green sort of represents the earth. So the brand Blue Mind kind of came about before the book came out. We started, in order to do research, one of the things we did is these small Blue Mind summits. So we would invite really smart people who would never, ever, ever talk to each other. So Jeff Clark, big wave surfer, pioneer Mavericks, big wave surfer, paired him up with a guy named Howard Fields, UCSF neuroscientist who studies dopamine, put them together and say, you guys need to talk. We're going to all listen. So usually small group, 75 people or so, throw a couple people together. So Jeff is talking about, he's like, I don't know anything about neuroscience. And the neuroscientist, I don't know anything about big wave surfing. But then they just dug into this conversation about dopamine addiction and the draw of surf as an activity. And it's mind blowing just to hear them discuss this. So we would hold these summits every year, Blue Mind Summits, to gather concepts, questions, start to connect the dots. And the hallmark of those summits was asking questions that have never been asked before, like live, and just throwing people into an uncomfortable place if they're an academic to wrestle with a concept, but in the company of someone that they would normally never meet. And just that was the raw material for writing the book. That's
the definition of courage, right? Like taking on being willing to take on an uncomfortable space, even though you don't know, and see what happens. And I'm sure the collision of that conversation is where some magic
absolutely happens. Well, and you had people at these summits. You had people like right before the summit saying, "Are you sure you want me to be on stage?" And what am I going to say? There's a lot. This guy Van Carrazza, who is a former pro surfer, runs a group called Operation Surf that serves veterans in surf therapy. Is like looking at the audience and he's going, "I'm the least educated person in here. I don't know what to say." And I said, "Just tell your story, man." And he goes, "The whole thing?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "The drug addiction part?" And I said, "Heck yeah." And standing ovation, everybody crying. He just like owned the conversation. And he was paired up with a Vanderbilt neuroscientist who studies the addictive aspects of our brains. And so having them together, and Van just being raw, courageous, absolutely, sharing his story with a group of strangers, but a story he's never shared publicly before. And so that's kind of how do you create a room where people feel like they can share something that has been, a big negative or big something that they have hidden their whole lives, and they feel that confidence. And then we start figuring out, why does surf therapy work? Well, let's ask these neuroscientists and the former pro surfer who used to be is an addict and is using that addiction as a force for good now. So fascinating, absolutely fascinating stuff. And then taking it and forming it all into a book, which is this thing that still makes sense in this digital world, this thing called a book. They've been around for a long time. They still have leverage and cachet somehow in this world of podcasts and tweets and streaming everything and free. Books still make sense.
It's like the anti-snap.
Exactly.
It won't disappear on you. And something, maybe that's our own fear of knowledge fading away or something.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing called a book is still useful, it turns out. I don't know how long that'll last, but hopefully for a while. But taking these stories and the science, forming it into a book. And then once you create a book, your job is to tear it apart and break it into little pieces and disseminate this thing that you created called a book, 300 pages, nonfiction. Now break it apart into little bites and get it out into the world and translate it, whether it's translate the language or translate the sentiment and the concepts. And that's the stage we're in now is that mass dissemination aspect.
I mean, it's a love story too, right? Like I can't fully explain for me why this word courage for me, just like why water for you. I can't explain fully, I think I've mentioned this before. I think I wrote it for a very particular reason that turned out to be the false reason of why I needed to write what I wrote. But it wasn't about it wasn't about money. It was there's a need to talk to guys like you. That why is there this infatuation, and what it's I imagine you get frustrated. I'm even putting words in your mouth. Like, so like what water can do for people, and they don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so does that bring you peace or anxiety? And then I don't know if I've done this part of service. So like maybe wrap it up with, all right, let's go back to square one. How do you define blue mind?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So let's start there and then I'll answer that other question. So blue mind is just a phrase that refers to this mildly meditative, generally relaxed, creative, compassionate, collaborative place we kind of move into when we're near, in, on, or underwater, or a depiction of water. So it could be virtual water. It could be your eyes are closed and you're thinking of your water, imaginary water. It could be your bathtub. We're not just talking about the ocean, the lakes, and the rivers, but water in all of its forms, all of its states, all of its the ways it shows up in our lives. So it could be poetry, but the reference of water takes us there. And it puts us in a place that's best understood in contrast to red mind, which is our normal, our new norm. Modern humans live mostly in red mind. We wake up, we look at our screens, and the day is on. We just jam and we crank and we grind. We're rewarded for that. We caffeinate. We cut back on our sleep. And there you go. And
I'm holding up my coffee, everybody.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah. And then when you feel like you can't go any more, you recaffeinate and grind harder and read a few memes and listen to a few podcasts and then grind more. And then you burn out. And that's gray mind. Eventually you fall apart. And so somewhere in there, you need to switch into this blue mind state that gives you a restorative qualities, helps you just kind of, rest up, refocus, reset, and then come back and do the things you love, fight for what you love. So that's blue mind. And you asked, is it frustrating to be like, hey, here's this idea, here's this tool. It's really useful for the people who need it most and everyone else. So when I meet people who have figured it out and or maybe getting in the water therapeutically, and it's really helping with their anxiety, really helping them live their lives, helping them with their career, helping their children who may be on the spectrum or dealing with anxiety. I asked, did a health practitioner prescribe this? And the answer is almost always no. They just got lucky and figured it out, or they knew someone, or they had a parent who said, hey, let's be water people. And so we need to change that. We need all nurses, therapists, doctors to understand this and to have it in their toolkit so that when you go talk to them and they say, hey, you seem like you got too much red mind and you're burning out, why don't you try the hot tub, the pool, a long bath, swimming laps, walking by the river, a mindful shower, a float tank. The list goes on and on and on, all the ways. Wouldn't it be great if our health professionals had that as a tool in their toolkit?
So this is a slanted point of view because the data came from a client of mine that sold hot tubs. So, okay, guess what? The filter is there. There's the asterisk. But we worked with this client one time and they're like, no, you got to understand the hot tub is the new kitchen table. This is the place where magic happens. It used to happen at the kitchen table. Now there's no one's it's not what it used to be when we were rooting for Dr. J, just to date ourselves. Now it's the healing powers of water. The conversation opens up. You didn't even ask how your day was to your son or daughter, and they're sharing, and there's something that happens. Now, I also wonder, it's like two Californians walked into a bar here, right? And so we're both nodding our heads, but we're also both East Coasters that made the choice to move west, right? So, if you're in a room full of New Yorkers and they're pale and it's the button downs, there's still plenty, and it's I just want to get to John's, get some pizza on Bleecker Street, right? Water. What are you talking about water? How do you get somebody like that who's probably living on a treadmill that's a 10.0 to go, hey, just how do you get them to even try the concept?
Yeah, or even discuss the possibility of trying the concept.
Yeah, totally.
Well, so New York, for example, walk east or west and you hit a river. Check out the real estate values next to those rivers, way up, almost remarkably so. So people in New York get it, and the people who have some extra money will use it to get a look at that water. So you got that, just the real estate values are make the point screamingly loudly in Del Mar, California, and in New York.
Here's my take on that. I never got, and I'm not being combative. I was just, because I live there. I'm like, I never got that Jersey paid a lot less to look at New York than it seemed like, shouldn't it be the other way around?
Well, well, even on the Jersey side, the waterfront has a premium, and we can go deep into like just what happens when you tag something with the word Jersey. It's not a premium like sounding word generally. So that's a whole other conversation, but that the non-New Yorkers may not appreciate as much as you and I do. So there's that. If you walk around the city, you find fountains, public fountains that I've watched people sit by the fountains during lunch, and they leave their cubicle. They choose to sit by a fountain. They choose to even climb up on a wall that might be hard to get to sit by the fountain. So you've got ways to practice Blue Mind in your daily life that don't involve a tropical vacation, that don't involve tearing out your bathroom and installing a jacuzzi. The people can utilize the bathtubs, the fountains in the city, the water. Take the train out to Coney Island once in a while and walk on the beach in the winter. It's great. I mean, it's great. The Rockaways, whatever. Just get out of the city by train. It's not that far. And you go out to the beach and you got it to yourself, and it clears your head. So we can go all New Yorker on this, or we can go deep California on this, or, Southern Illinois, Carbondale, Illinois, surrounded by lakes. People need their water, and it's, the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that I faced with giving keynotes on Blue Mind was at a prison conference. So this is a prison management conference. So I'm a marine biologist keynoting a prison conference. Like, how did I get here, first of all? And it was in New Jersey, Cape May, by the way. And so that's where they chose to have their conference. And these are people who work in prisons for a living. And we discussed that people who are incarcerated, you're not going to build a pool in the prison. The prisons don't have beautiful ocean views, but you can bring virtual water into an incarceration situation to a prison. The people who work in the prisons are stressed out in a whole different way that most people can't even imagine. And then the families of both of those groups are dealing with residual stress of having a loved one who's incarcerated. So we talked about how we could apply Blue Mind to the people who have their careers wrapped up in that industry, people who are in fact incarcerated, and then the families of both groups. And it was this breakthrough conversation for a East Coast group of people who work in one of the hardest industries, if you want to call it that you could ever imagine. And it made sense. So if it made sense there, we can kind of go universal with it, I think. And it isn't a upper middle class suburban concept. It is an everyone concept. Yeah,
it's primal. Yeah, and I think you're so spot on. Look, I record the show when our guests are available. It just happens to be a Friday, and on today's show, I feel like at the end of the week, it's like boxing. I've gone 15 rounds. I'm somehow still standing. Right? You would call that red mind. I hope I'm not in gray mind. And I love what I do. I love what I do, but my calendar's like hour, 30 minutes,
Yeah.
15, right? And it's like ding. And I'm like, finally, Saturday's here. I can chill for a hot second. I can talk to my kids, have breakfast with them. So give me some tools to ritualize Blue Mind. Like if I'm listening, there's certain things I like to ritualize. I'm sure we can. I almost feel like we're now on stage together, and I don't know if I'm the surfer and you're the who's who in here, but I love scheduling time on my calendar to do things. So technology is working on my behalf versus the other way around. Like, is that an idea? Should I be putting on my calendar 20-minute blocks on a Saturday morning or Friday afternoon to watch the sunset? I live 10 minutes from the beach as a reset. So can you give me like 3 things I could ritualize right now for Blue Mind?
Yeah. So let's start with the easy stuff that's in the domestic water, stuff in your home. So everybody's taking a bath or a shower maybe every day. Some people more, some people less. Let's just say on average daily. Take 15 seconds during your next shower and pay more attention to the way that water feels than you ever have in your entire life. Easy. I'm asking for 15 seconds of something you're already doing. But just let that pound on the back of your neck, close your eyes, and imagine you're somewhere else, but just really feel that water. And that water has been around for a really long time. It's pumping through some pipes to get to you, goes down the drain back into the world. But for that second, it's hitting your body. And the luxury of having fresh water pounding on your body is something very special that humanity hasn't had for all that long. Water on demand, temperature control, and that pressure. Just pay attention to that. Feel really, really lucky that you can turn a knob and have hot water come out and massage the back of your neck.
I'm curious that you said go somewhere else. Wouldn't I want to do the opposite? Would I want to stay in the moment?
Yeah, be mindful. Well, some people would close their eyes and say, "Oh, imagine you're under a waterfall." If you need to do that, or just say, "Love your shower" a little more. But pay attention, really pay attention to that water on you. 15 seconds, easy. And then maybe do that every time you take a shower. All right. So that's an easy one without even changing your plumbing,
What do you want to call that? I'm a branding guy.
So in these categories, that's, a blue mindful shower, or that's the domestic water. Then you've got the wild water. So go outside. Is there a lake, a river, an ocean in your town? Maybe your commute to work, you cross a bridge. Maybe you drive around the lake. Once a week, take a minute, stop, pull into the park, get out, take a little 5-minute stroll and check it out. Check out the ducks and the turtles and the frogs and the birds. This time of year, it's going off. It's amazing. And just enjoy it. Maybe take somebody with you that you want to have a better conversation with. Guaranteed the conversation will be better, right? Again, free. You can do it. It's right there, right? And then the third category of free Blue Mind is the virtual. So think of the song that takes you to the water. Jimmy Buffett, whatever, Jack Johnson. There's lots of people singing about water in some way. Think of a poem, a book of poetry, or a film, a beautiful water-related film. The Shape of Water is a great one. And just experience water virtually. Might be, there are all these apps that have water sounds, great sleep aid, rather than putting on another podcast at the end of the day that gets your brain whizzing.
Wait, hold on. Do we have to go there?
Drill on the line on that. Binge all Ryan's podcasts, then put on the sound of a river to help you fall asleep after your brain is going a million miles an hour.
I am so selfish. I mean, come on. Well, that's terrible. Okay, so I love this. So you've got domestic water, right?
Virtual water, wild water. Then you also have the urban water. We talked about fountains in the cities and the urban waterfronts. And then the category we all carry with us is imaginary water. So anytime, anywhere, you can close your eyes and imagine the sight, the sound, the taste, the smell of the water that you love the most, whether it's a pond, a lake, a river, an ocean. And you can just go there and you just take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, and just imagine that place, the water you love, the water maybe from your childhood, could be where you learn to swim, where you like to surf, where your favorite vacation of all time, and just go there. And it's amazing. It's just like you are holding all these rich memories. They're all yours. It's your nostalgia. Activate them. It's this incredible toolbox. So anytime you're feeling that red mind coming in, you do want to avoid gray mind. Gray mind sucks. It's pointless. Unless you're like an emo songwriter, then it's probably you need it. You need to be a little depressed and a little sad. But for most of us, it's not a healthy place. But when you're feeling that red mind, tap into one of these paths to blue mind. If you can't get outside, do some of these interior bits of work.
Jay, in blue mind, do you go deeper on the science, or like was it hard to do it because there was no science?
Oh, back when I was writing the book, there was a lot of dot connecting. We went into the neuroscience and pulled what was there, and then had these analogies. So the science of your brain on music was more developed, so we could lean on that a little bit. The science of red mind was more developed. The science of stress, so we could lean on that a little bit. Fast forward nearly a decade, there's a ton of new research that I think we kind of kicked the door open on. Clinical research on, by neuroscientists and psychologists of what happens to your brain when you're floating in water, when you're surfing, when you're listening to water, when you're looking at an aquarium tank, on all these different forms, when you're just sitting in the bathtub. And so now if I was rewriting the book, I would say exactly the same thing, but my literature cited would be 3 times as long, and it would be, more backed up. But none of the research has changed the ideas. It's just bold, underlined, all of them. Yeah.
This might be an unfair question. Is there like one zinger of a statistic on the healing powers of water that you can I always have this on the top of my mind, just in case a guy like Ryan asks me this question?
Yeah.
Is there one that you could share?
There's a lot. There's one great body of research happening in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This guy, Justin Feinstein, he's at the Laureate Institute for Brain Research. He is putting people with high levels of anxiety disorder and post-traumatic stress into float tanks, which is an extreme version of blue mind. And he's measuring their brains with an fMRI brain scanner before and after. He's watching their movement while they float. He's doing all of the verbal, surveys, blood tests. And what he has found is that floating for an hour in salt water in the dark, in quiet, is better than all of the other therapies that their institute have studied for anxiety and post-traumatic stress. That's stunning. I mean, so then the question is, what do we do with that? That's blue mind. That's extreme blue mind. You can't float all the time. You can't cruise around with your pool in a float tank, but floating in a pool on an afternoon or in an evening, it's a continuum, so as a result, we're seeing pro athletes, Navy SEALs, entrepreneurs, creative people using floating in water therapeutically, incredibly effectively. That's interesting. But what's more interesting is to me, thinking of people with anxiety disorders, who aren't making it through, literally, they're dying. This is life-saving. This could be the thing that keeps them going, that gives them a leg up. And if it's working better than all of the other things we do, for our veterans and our first responders and stressed out young people who, we're losing them, man. And at a higher rate than we've ever seen. So Justin's research, if you're interested in go to Google Scholar, look up Justin Feinstein, and apologies in advance, you'll lose the next few hours of your life reading his stuff. It's really good, really useful. But that to me, it's the indoor laboratory clinical version of the lake, the river, the ocean, the swimming pool, the bathtub, the jacuzzi, to some degree. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it, all of this. And I get why the study should be done in the dark. Like, I don't have Steph Curry's abs. I have anxiety taking my shirt off. So the fact that it's in the dark, I get why it would actually help me, because that's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, no, and it's another study, actually. One of Justin's students looked at body dysmorphia and float therapy, and found for mostly young women who don't like their bodies, and then that leads to destructive behaviors, they find relief. The mind-body connection changes while you're floating in the dark in water, and they have a new appreciation for their bodies, and it shifts the completely dysfunctional relationship that they have on land with their body into a different place, which allows them to heal and gain some weight in some cases and not be down on themselves. And that research is like, anorexia is the most deadly mental health disorder, in our country. And so if you have something that may work better than what we're doing, like, bring it, seriously, bring it, and let's talk about it. Yeah. So
awesome. Domestic water, virtual water, urban water, imaginary water, wild water. Speaking of wild, you've got a new project you're working on right now called Dear Wild Child. This is pretty sweet. Can you share what you're cooking up?
Yeah, well, it's the new book that I wrote with my daughter called Dear Wild Child. And it's a sweet story based on a tragic situation. The book is based on a letter that I wrote her the day after we lost our home to a wildfire, and she had left for college. And the next day, these wildfires came through and basically took everything. And I went out there with her sister and to check to see if our house made it. And then had to inform her and her mom, who were out in New York at Syracuse, back to the East Coast for college, starting her freshman year, called and said, here's the update. And I couldn't speak. I mean, I couldn't put the words together. And so got off the phone. We were both crying, and wrote her a letter, cried through the writing. Like, I cried on this keyboard right here. Like, there were drips coming out of my face onto this keyboard, and I just kept typing this letter. Sent the letter off to her, and then it went out into the world. And, as things do, it went viral. Got printed in a couple magazines. We read it on NPR. It helped people this is mid-pandemic, so things were already falling apart for a lot of people, and then these 3 million acres burned in California that summer. Kids Book Company contacted us and said, would you be interested in making this really sweet letter to your daughter about loss and what to do with it into a kid's book? And I said, well, ask her. It's her letter. I just wrote it. And then we worked together to adjust it to make it a slightly different narrative. And a brilliant illustrator named Drew Beckmeyer in LA just really captured the vibe of what the house was before it disappeared and what the forest was like. But the upshot of the story is we all have lost and will continue to lose something that we care deeply about, that we love, guaranteed. A loved one, a home, a dream, a job, a plan, all of the above. And so what are you going to do when that happens? Because it's going to happen. And I tried to figure out what to say to my own kids. And in the process of doing that, had some insights, and that's what we share through the book. And just reminded her, everything that was her home is inside her. Mm-hmm. She's carrying it. Physically, it's gone. It's ashes. It does no longer exist in the material form. But all of those memories, all of those smells, her imagination can bring them all up. And she carries her home with her wherever she goes. And that's where the book ends, is this great illustration of this girl, Grace, on a hill overlooking the ocean with her backpack on. And then the shadow that she casts is like a house with legs. So it's a sweet, sweet illustration that sort of says that you carry your home wherever you go. And so that's coming out this summer.
Jay, yeah. So if I want to, like you said, we're already going to lose ourselves if we go looking for certain people's literature. If people want to learn more about Blue Mind or Dear Wild Child, where should they go?
I'd say straight up, just put the phrase Blue Mind in quotes and then add whatever word you might be interested in. If it's surfing, add that. If it's float tanks, add that. If it's anxiety, if it's, whatever your thing is with Blue Mind, and Google it, and you will find a ton of stuff. We've had a lot of people write lots of good words about this concept. And so I have a website, it's wallacejnichols.org, but you really shouldn't go there. It's not great. You should go everywhere else. Go to your website, listen to this podcast again, share it. But hashtag Blue Mind is a good way to follow the conversation in different places. Then Dear Wild Child will be in your favorite bookstore, I'm sure.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Sachs for forcing you to go deeper in this conversation. I mean, I'm thinking of ways where I can ritualize water more. I love the 3 examples you gave for me. I'm excited for Dear Wild Child. I have lots of questions because my son and I are working on a kid's book. We don't need to do that right here and now. But just, again, the universe is funny where, 2 East Coast dudes who've moved west who are just trying to love a word and live it out and help others do it too. And then you're writing your book and I'm writing my kid's book. And I do find it fascinating. Maybe it's a good place to end. That even with Dear Wild Child, water that still shows up in the form of tears as they're hitting your keyboard while you're writing the story, and sort of, like you said, memorializing a memory or memories. And water is still very present in this concept. Dude, you're the man. Let's just, I always, however I can help.
Yeah, well, I had one thought that I was thinking in sort of preparing to chat with you here. And I remember talking to you before your book on courage came out. And we were talking about just the concept of courage. And you pushed me to think about, like, what does that word mean? And what does that feeling feel like? And I remember thinking courage is something that you let others assign to you. You don't call yourself courageous. You let history, you let your peers refer to you that way. And I just want to say you're a very courageous man. And I'm going to take the opportunity to assign that word to you, because I know it works better that way. When your peers say you're courageous, you've embodied that, and writing your book and going out into the world and sharing that and taking on new challenges and challenging us to do that too is courageous. So thank you for that. And thanks for reaching out to talk about Blue Mind too.
Well, I'm receiving. I'm trying not to tear up and cry myself. Yeah, it's not about me. I think it's hard for people to get. Like, it's how do you help people be courageous or get out of their own way and get unstuck? And so I really appreciate those words. And come on down and see me already. Jeez, I've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And we'll keep the conversation going. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, my pleasure.